The outdoor community for a really long time has been a space of, white, privileged men. So I think there's a movement amongst many, many diverse people and groups to say, let's make more visible the fact that we have always been in the outdoors, you just haven't known it. My hope is that we change the outdoor industry enough to make it more safe and fun and affirming for all kinds of people, but especially trans and queer people.
I'm gonna need my glasses. Oh, really didn't want to, but okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for participating in the conversation around the short film Venture Out, which profiles the Venture Out Project, a nonprofit organization that brings LGBTQ folks outdoors on wilderness trips. It's great to connect with all of you. Before we get started, why don't you go around and introduce yourself?
Sure, I'll start. My name is Perry Cohen, he and him, and I am the founder and executive director of the Venture Out Project, and also was lucky enough to be featured in this film.
My name is Palmer Morse. I'm the co-founder of Sprucestone Films. I use he, him, his, and yeah, I was one of the co-directors on Venture Out.
My name is Jamie, he, him, his pronouns. I was one of the co-directors on Venture Out, and I'm the co-founder of Transwave Films.
And my name is Matt Mikkelsen. I use he, him, his as well. I'm co-founder of Sprucestone Films and had the honor of working on this project alongside all these beautiful humans.
So, Jamie, you are the co-founder of Transwave Films and not only a co-director of Venture Out, but also an executive producer. Can you talk a bit about your work at Transwave Films and what role films like Venture Out have in creating greater visibility for the LGBTQ community?
Yeah, absolutely. So I co-founded Transwave Films with a fellow trans filmmaker friend of mine. And we've been doing it for the past, almost a year at this point now. And Venture Out was the first film we officially did under that title. And we felt like it was really important to sort of have a small production company entirely founded with the purpose of amplifying trans voices from the perspective of trans creators themselves. Because I think all too often the film industry is dominated by people in power, and that typically tends to be white cis men telling trans stories, which I don't think is a problem per se, but I think that if you don't have people who have also had those experiences behind the camera as well as in front, you're really missing a really important piece kind of the storytelling process. So I was super psyched to be brought onto the project with Matt and Palmer. And I typically wouldn't, just say yes, but since I know them so well and trust them and know that they have the right intentions, and it wasn't extractive filmmaking or fetishizing filmmaking, it was really filmmaking for the purpose of enlightening. And that's kind of what I try to do in all of my filmmaking. I think when people produce stories about the trans community, I think the public has this assumption that it's going to be highly sensationalizing. So it's going to be about a surgery or about some severe trauma that was overcome or about parents kicking you out of the house. And I hope that what comes through in this film and my filmmaking in general is that trans experiences are as varied as anyone else's experience. Some are good, some are bad. Of course, the statistics facing the trans community are really bad and really staggering, but ultimately, we are human beings like any else, and we have feelings and experiences like any else. And I think just the overarching idea that we need to humanize is what I would like to accomplish with all of my films.
Perry, in the very beginning of Venture Out, the viewer hears a voiceover from you explaining that the outdoor community has historically been thought of as a space for white privileged men. But can you talk a bit about the movement among diverse groups to increase their visibility in the outdoor space?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I didn't realize that when I found Venture Out about 5.5 years ago, that there was a movement across so many different identity groups to, as you point out, not just say we're here, but say we've always been here and now it's time to become more. And it's been really exciting to be a part of that. And I think it's kind of become some coalition work that I hope becomes something that happens across the US political spectrum in general, where it's saying, the great quote, which is none of us are free until all of us are free. And I think we feel like that within the outdoor community. If we're saying that Black people can't be outside, or Indigenous people need to not have their own private land, sorry, or queer people aren't allowed in the outside, we're discriminating, and we're creating kind of these false divisions amongst community versus saying, hey, let's all come together and say, this is a space for all of us, and help each other out. And there's been this really exciting movement where there's been visibility by individual groups kind of across Instagram and social, but then also coming together at big spaces like Outdoor Retailer, or creating websites where people can go to find resources for their company or organization to say, hey, we want to talk about the intersection of queer, Black, or Indigenous people, or people with disabilities. And so it's a really exciting time to feel like you're not alone in this realization and in this desire to improve the visibility of folks who really are out there.
So Matt, you and Palmer are the co-founders of Sprucetone Films. Palmer is based in Oakland, California, and you're based in Jackson, Wyoming. So the two of you have been collaborating remotely for a while. When it comes to filmmaking during a pandemic, I wonder what's changed for Sprucetone Films and what hasn't changed.
A great question. I think it's a question that we're still trying to answer ourselves, as things change all the time. But yeah, Palmer and I are no strangers to working from faraway places together on projects. We've never actually lived in the same place except for when we were in college. So in a lot of ways, this is kind of business as usual for us in terms of, Zoom, FaceTime calls as we're editing a project, or something like that. But I think the pandemic has really given us a chance to kind of pump the brakes and give ourselves time to kind of reestablish what the projects we're thinking about doing are, and reestablishing their importance, which there are a few, and we're excited about them. You'll hear about them at some point. But yeah, I think one of the things that has become really apparent over the past, especially the past month, is that we have these this equipment and these skills and this kind of privilege to be able to amplify stories that need to be told. So we've been trying to do the best that we can to amplify POC voices and organizations that are doing really great work in an issue that's just as big as the pandemic. So if anyone watching, or if you know anyone who needs help editing video or needs resources that maybe we can help offer, we're happy to do that. But I would love to give Jamie space to talk about his new project, if you want to, Jamie, because I think it's like so amazing, and it's going to be like the biggest thing that happens in film of all time. Just
Okay. So I'm producing a documentary series called Trans in Trumpland, and essentially what we did is we visited 4 trans activists in like extremely politically hostile areas of the country, and kind of highlighted their stories and tried to shed light on like the resiliency that it requires to be trans. And yeah, we're working with distributors right now, and hopefully gonna have it released by fall 2020 before the election. So yeah, thank you for shouting it out, Matt.
Yeah, and Palmer and I have been lucky enough to see some early cuts and little bits, and it really is, I think it's going to be, it already is so amazing, but I cannot wait for the public to see it, Jamie. It's so incredible.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really, really excited to have it out there.
Palmer, 3 of Sprucetone's films were 2020 Environmental Film Festival selections, Venture Out, of course, Detroit Hives, and Constant Thought. Can you tell us about any projects that you and Matt might have that are new and that you're working on now?
So we're releasing a new film called Water Flows Together, which is a film we produced in partnership with another DC Environmental Film Festival alumni, Taylor Graham. We brought Taylor onto the project to help us direct and produce the film. And it's essentially about this incredible Dene or Navajo woman named Colleen Cooley, who's one of the few female Dene river guides on the San Juan River in the Four Corners region. And the film is kind of meditative and about her experience and from her perspective of the importance of acknowledging indigenous land and outdoor recreation, and also discussing accessibility to these places that are incredibly sacred to her people, for her people, to get out on the river and enjoy. For us, I think, we're just really psyched to have been able to work with Colleen and bring her on as a producer of the film to help elevate her perspective and her people's, point of view. And it feels really topical right now, just kind of discussing, BIPOC stories and working with that community to amplify their own voices was really crucial in the creation of the film. So it feels good, and I'm excited to get it out the door.
Perry, I wanted to highlight the Venture Out project a little bit. I read that you have worked with over 900 participants in 21 different states. What are your hopes for Venture Out as the organization continues to move forward?
Yeah, we have had really exciting growth. I mean, in 5 years, we went from 2 backpacking trips where we, led about 20 people to over 100, and then now we're back down to 0 in the COVID era, which is kind of a harsh reality. We had plans to actually expand our volunteer hiker program. We were going to have new volunteer hike leaders, and the idea with that is, people ask, when are you coming to Ohio? When are you coming to Texas? When are you coming to Indiana? And the reality was, I don't know when we're coming, but what if somebody from your community came, got trained? We could support them with the Venture Out project infrastructure, and then they could go home where they know the trails better than we do, and they know the queer community there better than we do, and they can kind of use our back to build local community and provide trips and adventures. So that's the growth plan for Venture Out, is to really use the weight of our national network to say, how can we support your communities, and really be responsive to what folks want, rather than coming down with our perspective and saying, this is what we think you all need, saying, what do you want and how can we help you? So my hope is that, once we're kind of through this, we can pick up trips again, and we can pick up our day hikes again, and we can expand into new geographies. And also, I think, one of the things that we're really focusing on right now is how can we partner with other organizations, whether they indigenous queer organization, BIPOC queer organization, or queer disability folks, to say we acknowledge kind of where our strength and experience been, and we want to branch out, and we want to get to work with more and more folks, because we think we'll learn more, and there's just so many opportunities to have as we increase the base of who gets to be parts of queer community in the outdoors.
I want to thank everyone for taking the time to speak with me today. Perry, the work you're doing is incredible and obviously so important, so it's really a pleasure to have you take some time to chat with me. Palmer, Matt, Jamie, I'm looking forward to an opportunity in the future where we can talk about some of your newer work. So thank you, everyone. Take care.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.